Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have incredible magical powers but have to hide them while posing as a simple adventurer? Welcome to the fascinating world of Narberal Gamma, one of the most intriguing characters in the Overlord universe. Today, we're diving deep into the story of this powerful doppelganger disguised as a human, exploring her hidden powers, unwavering loyalty, and the challenges she faces trying to blend in with the inferior insects, as she affectionately calls humans. So get ready for an electrifying journey through the underworld of Nazarick. Who knows, by the end of this video, you might find yourself rooting for this morally ambiguous anti-heroine. Narberal Gamma. At first glance, a beautiful human adventurer with black hair and snow-white skin. But behind this facade lies one of the most powerful and loyal servants of the fearsome Overlord Ains Ulgaun. Born from the creative minds of the developers of the game Yggdrasil, Narberal is a doppelganger, a creature capable of assuming the form of other races. However, due to her low racial level, she can only maintain a single human form. This doesn't stop her, though, from being one of the most formidable combatants in Nazarick. As a member of the Pleiades, the elite battle Maid squad, Narberal holds a prestigious position in the hierarchy of the Great Tomb of Nazarick. Her specialty? Arcane magic, with a focus on elemental air and electricity spells. Imagine the power to summon lightning in the form of serpentine dragons or create spheres of pure electric energy with a simple gesture. These are just some of the tricks up this battle mage's sleeve. But the true fascination of Narberal lies in her duality. When in Nazarick, she is the loyal servant, ready to sacrifice her life for her master Ains. In the outside world, she must play the role of Maid, a talented but much more restrained adventurer. It is in this dynamic that much of Narberal's internal conflict resides. As someone created to despise all other races, especially humans, she must constantly restrain herself to not reveal her true nature. Imagine the effort required to not pulverize with a lightning bolt the first arrogant adventurer who crosses her path. It's a constant struggle between her duty to maintain appearances and her visceral desire to show the superiority of Nazarick. But don't think Narberal is just a destruction machine without emotions. On the contrary, she is endowed with a complex and fascinating personality. Her loyalty to Ains borders on religious devotion. To her, there is no being more worthy of admiration in all the worlds. This adoration reaches comical levels when she is disguised as Nabe. Even having received express orders to treat him as an equal, she can't help but call him Ain Sama, or Master, in front of other adventurers. It's as if every fiber of her being rebels against the idea of treating her master as a mere mortal. And we can't forget her peculiar relationship with humans. To Narberal, they are little more than insects, weak, ephemeral, and unworthy of sharing the same air as the superior creatures of Nazarick. Yet she is forced to interact with them daily in her adventurer persona. This leads to situations both hilarious and tense in equal measure. We see Narberal struggling to understand basic human societal concepts like courtesy or empathy. To her, the idea of caring about the well-being of an insect is simply absurd. But it is precisely in this friction between her true self and her persona that Narberal becomes truly fascinating. She is forced to question her own beliefs and prejudices, albeit reluctantly. A striking example of this is her relationship with Evil Eye, a powerful vampire adventurer disguised as a human. Initially, Narberal sees her as just another despicable human. But upon witnessing her powers and devotion to Mammon, Ain's alter ego, she is forced to recognize that perhaps not all beings in this new world are completely worthless. Of course, this doesn't mean that Narberal has a soft heart. Far from it. She is still one of the most dangerous members of the Pleiades, always ready to eliminate any threat to Nazarick without a shred of remorse. Her combat efficiency is legendary. Using a lethal combination of offensive magic and martial skills, Narberal can defeat opponents far above her apparent level. And what's most impressive is that she does it while maintaining a serene and controlled expression, as if she were merely performing another household chore. Speaking of household chores, we can't ignore the fact that, despite all her power, Narberal is still technically a maid. And she takes this role very seriously. When not on missions in the outside world, she can be found performing her duties in the Great Tomb of Nazarick with the same dedication she shows in battle. This duality between lethal warrior and obedient servant is another aspect that makes Narberal so captivating. One moment she can be casting spells capable of obliterating entire cities, and the next, she's serving tea to her master with the grace of a court lady. But make no mistake, Narberal is not just a blind follower. Despite her unquestionable loyalty, she possesses a sharp mind and doesn't hesitate to offer strategic advice when necessary. Her unique perspective as a creature of Nazarick living in the outside world provides valuable insights for Ain's plans of domination. A particularly interesting aspect of Narberal is her relationship with the other Pleiades. As the most powerful of the group, she naturally assumes a leadership position. However, this doesn't mean she is always the most mature or sensible. Her interactions with her sisters reveal a lighter and even childish side to her personality. Whether competing with Lupus Regina Beta for attention or trying to understand CZ2128 Delta's jokes, these moments show that despite all her power and arrogance, Narberal still has much to learn. And speaking of learning, one of Narberal's most fascinating journeys is her slow, and often reluctant, process of better understanding the human world. Each mission as Nabe is an anthropology lesson for her, forcing her to question her preconceptions about these creatures she so despises. A striking example of this occurs during her mission to protect Nymphyria Bear. Initially, Narberal sees the young alchemist as just another insignificant human. But upon witnessing his dedication to research and genuine admiration for Mammon, she is forced to acknowledge that perhaps not all humans are completely useless. Of course, this doesn't mean she has developed a sudden love for humanity. Far from it. But these small moments of doubt and reflection add layers of depth to her character, making her much more than just another one-dimensional villain. A particularly intriguing aspect of Narberal is her relationship with her own identity. As a doppelganger, she can assume other forms. However, due to her limitations, she can only maintain a single human form. This raises fascinating questions about identity and authenticity. Does Narberal feel more herself in her original doppelganger form or in her human form as Maid? How does this duality affect her perception of herself and the world around her? These are questions the anime and light novels only scratch the surface of, but they offer fertile ground for speculation and analysis. Another fascinating aspect of Narberal is her relationship with magic. As a battle mage specializing in elemental magic, she has a deep connection with the forces of nature. This is reflected not only in her powerful offensive spells but also in her own personality. Like the electricity she controls, Narberal can be unpredictable and volatile. One moment she may be calm and composed, and the next, ready to unleash a storm of destruction upon her enemies. This tempestuous nature adds an extra layer of tension to every scene she appears in. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Narberal is the unrealized potential for her character growth. As she is increasingly exposed to the outside world and forced to interact with humans and other races, fascinating opportunities for development arise. Imagine, for example, a scenario where Narberal is forced to work side by side with a group of human adventurers for an extended period, without Ain's presence to guide her. How would she handle this situation? Would she finally begin to see value in the insects she so despises? Or would her loyalty to Nazarick prevail, leading her to betray her companions at the first opportunity? These possibilities are what make Narberal such a rich and full of potential character. She represents not only the conflict between Nazarick and the New World, but also the internal struggle between duty and personal growth, between prejudice and understanding. Another fascinating aspect of Narberal is her relationship with power. As one of Nazarick's most powerful servants, she is accustomed to being superior to most beings she encounters. However, when disguised as Maid, she must constantly restrain her true power. This dynamic creates tense and often comedic situations. We see Narberal struggling not to roll her eyes when a mediocre adventurer boasts of his skills, or having to hold back from obliterating a weak enemy with a single spell. But more than just humor, this situation raises interesting questions about the nature of power and how it shapes our perception of the world. For Narberal, who has always lived at the top of the power hierarchy, having to lower herself to the level of insects is an entirely alien experience. This leads to another fascinating aspect of her personality, her elitism. Narberal not only sees herself as superior to humans, but to practically all other creatures that aren't from Nazarick. This us against them mentality is a fundamental part of who she is. However, as she spends more time in the outside world, we begin to see small cracks in this facade of superiority. Moments when she is forced to acknowledge the courage or skill of a human, or situations where she almost enjoys the company of insects. These small changes may seem insignificant, but for a character as inflexible as Narberal, they represent enormous potential for growth. It's as if, slowly and against her will, she is beginning to see the world from a new perspective. Of course, this doesn't mean that Narberal is about to become a champion of humanity. Her loyalty to Nazarick and Ains remains unwavering. But these small changes add fascinating nuances to her character, making her much more than just another blind follower. A particularly interesting aspect of Narberal is her relationship with morality. As a creation of Nazarick, her moral values are completely alien to ours. For her, loyalty to Ains and Nazarick trumps any other ethical consideration. This leads to situations where Narberal commits acts we would consider horrific without a shred of remorse. Killing innocents, manipulating allies, destroying entire cities. All of this is acceptable if it's for the good of Nazarick. However, what makes this fascinating is that Narberal is not portrayed as a psychopath without emotions. She is capable of forming connections, of feeling admiration, and even a distorted form of affection. It's just that her value scale is completely different from ours. This makes us question our own morality. If we had been raised in an environment like Nazarick, with such different values, would we be so different from Narberal? It's this moral ambiguity that makes her character so compelling, even when her actions are repugnant. Another intriguing aspect of Narberal is her relationship with femininity. As a doppelganger, the concept of gender is probably very different for her. However, in her human form, she is portrayed as an exceptionally beautiful woman. This creates interesting situations, especially when she is disguised as Maid. We see Narberal dealing with unwanted admirers, navigating the complexities of human social interactions based on gender, and occasionally using her appearance as a manipulation tool. However, the most fascinating aspect is how Narberal seems completely oblivious to the effect her beauty has on others. For her, her appearance is just another aspect of her disguise, as irrelevant as the color of her clothes or the style of her hair. This disconnect between her appearance and self-perception creates moments of humor and tension, but also raises interesting questions about identity and self-image. How does someone relate to their own body when it is essentially an artificial construction? Speaking of artificial constructions, we can't ignore the fact that Narberal, like all the NPCs of Nazarick, is essentially an artificially created being. She was programmed with certain personality traits, abilities, and loyalties.